We're going to start with this today. Now, um, this is a really tough teaching for me, and I hope it's tough for all of you, right? So it starts out, you have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy, right? Back it up. I don't know, right? But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, right? So for me, there's two things that I'm going to be going through today that I want you to remember and I want you to ask yourself throughout the week. First of all, what is your soul condition? Right? I want you to keep that in your mind. What is your soul condition? The other one is, are you willing to have your soul transformed? So that's awesome. You may not by the end of this, but no, that's a joke. So it's always interesting, right? I love Sean comes up and he's like, every church has a DNA, and you want to be at the right place, and we have a very interesting church, right? So it I, I'm sitting here, I come in, and I'm talking to Dom, and Dom is like, Chuck, this is what I'm going through. These are the songs I'm going to sing this week, and these are the things that have been revealed to me. And look, it's about being dependent on God. All these things. I'm like, Dom, you're kidding me. As I was preparing the message, this is what I was hearing, right? And 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 it's the same thing as you. And then he's telling me and going through this, and then Sean comes up and he starts talking about keys and who's driving. And Sean and Dom didn't talk, right? That's how the Spirit works, right? And that's how he works in your life. So it's pretty interesting. The DNA of this church it's interesting. It's real. I don't want to go to a church where I'm stuck by four walls, or I'm in an inclusive club, or some people can be here, some people can't, or I'm judging you, or this one. That's not what this church is about. I know this. I'm walking by and my buddy Jay says, "You're preaching?" Oh no. Right? And then I'm talking to Jen and she's like, "I just wanted to punch that kid in the throat." And I'm thinking to myself, this is perfect. That's what my wife says to me every day. Right? I'm like, this is great. So we're talking about, some of you I have walked with for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. I mean, my buddy John over here and I used to fight in the Home Depot parking lot because we'd work 80 hours a week together, right? So it's fitting that we're talking about love your neighbor, pray for your enemy. It's interesting. How many of you have a dog? Okay. I have a dog, Sarge, right? It's a Catahoula, high strung, needs to be trained. I'm not bringing up this about you, Misty. Um, so my dog goes out in the yard and he listens pretty well to me, right? Now, I have these neighbors. They're wonderful neighbors. We've been living in this house for 10 years. And they we've always gotten along really well with them. Everything. Like they need a tree cut down, I go cut it down. They need a lawnmower, they use my lawnmower. I'm like, hey, use the lawnmower. Go. You need me to mow your lawn, I'm mowing your lawn. We're going through all these things, right? Right now, this is called justification and rationalization. Because you're going to find out with this, we do it, right? My dog, my dog, 5 times over the last year has escaped the clutches of Chuck. And in some way, it always starts with poop, guys. I'm just letting you know. In some way, the dog has pooped on their yard. And and I feel bad about this, right? So I got a text message and they're like, please control your dog. It pooped in our yard. They are absolutely right. I am wrong, right? Like we own our dogs. We are the owner of the dogs. Pooped. I'm like, oh, I am so sorry. And of course, I'm a peacemaker, right? That's part of my thing. I'm like, I'm going to make peace, right? If I do something, I'm going to say sorry. I'm sorry, right? Happens a second time. listen, I sent you a text message the first time. This was very important to me. Please respect those boundaries. And I'm like, I am so sorry. I'm going to enter. I'm thinking about putting up a fence, in the area you use my yard for. I didn't say that, but I thought it, right? Right. And then it happens a third time, right? And now it's like all on war. Like this is really disturbing me. This is bothering me. This is not me. That's what they texted me. Like this is I can't even talk about this right now. And I'm like, oh, so Karen. I mean, um, so I was thinking to myself like, oh no. I'm like now, and I'm apologizing. Now I'm training the dog with food. Food works for me, just to let you know. For me personally, I'm trained. But I'm training the dog with food. I got it down. I got it down. Now, this is not my wife's fault. I want to let you know. I'm at school and I get a text message from the husband. This is very important. Like blah blah blah, everything like this. Now I'm ripped. Like, how did this dog get out? Well, apparently the dog did not listen to my wife, and it got out. And I'm like, oh no. Now I am finally ticked off at my neighbor. And I start going through a laundry list of 10 years of everything I have done to help them, to go out of the way, to be the best neighbor I can be, to do everything. And five poops has ruined my neighborhood. I'm like, basically like, I text back, and now I'm like right now in class, I'm teaching my kids ethos, pathos, and logos, and it's a way of speaking, persuasive writing, and the one that I would use, most people would call manipulation, but I would call it like using my emotions to make someone feel bad. And I'm like, I am so sorry. I am so busy. I have five children and we are all over the place. And the dog just must have, while I was changing a diaper, like I'm going through like what must have happened. And I got the response like, it's okay, right? It's okay. We understand. And I'm like, I totally manipulated that situation, right? And I'm like, God, love your neighbor. I went through revenge, retaliation, manipulation, all these things. My neighbor technically is not wrong. They should have autonomy over their own yard, and they shouldn't want to step into. That did happen once. I mean, just once, right? So I want you to think about that. See, what we're going to be talking about today is the world, what the world expects, and what God's kingdom calls for. How many of you have been in a situation like that with the poop? Not God's kingdom thing. Okay. I saw a guy take a shovel, pick up poop, and fling it across the road to another neighbor. He was a pastor, not our pastor, no, but he was a pastor, and I was like, oh my gosh, holy crap, no pun intended. So I want to go over what we've been talking about, right? We are in the Beatitudes. We are in the Sermon on the Mount. So I want you to understand when Jesus is teaching on the Mount, he's not teaching to just a general audience of whoever was going to show up. He was teaching to his followers, okay? He's teaching to the early church. So I want that to sit in. He's teaching to you. So Jesus' words are eternal, and they break through the barriers of time and space, and it's not Star Trek, but it breaks through all of that. So Jesus knows he's teaching to the people on the Sermon on the Mount, right? On the Mount, but he knows you're also sitting there, right? He knows you personally right now are sitting there reading those words, and the sermon is through all of eternity, right? So it is personal to you. It is meant for you as followers of Christ. And he's being radical in what he's saying. You know, we talk about church DNA. I want you to understand, we at this church, and it's one of the reasons why I'm here and I love it, and it's conversations Sean and I have had since the beginning of this church. We are called out of the church. We meet here or wherever we meet on Sundays, but we are called out of these walls, and we are not called to be in an inclusive club where all your friends are Christians and all your friends have your same faith or your same beliefs or your same political views or your same social views. Because if that's what's happening, we're not doing what this message today that we're going to talk about is doing, because God is calling us to much higher than that. So we're going to start. This is the premise of it, right? You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you. So when I ask you that first point, Sean said, Chuck, have two memorable points. I'm a teacher. I have two memorable questions, right? So that's where we're going to go. So, what is your soul condition? And this is asking you, what is your soul condition? What is your condition? Are you willing? Yes, love your enemy. That's a transaction. They love you back. No, love your neighbor. I'm sorry. They love you back, right? The people in our lives that we love us back. That's a transaction a lot of times. God's calling us to love those who don't love us. Pray for them. We're going to talk about that. So if you could put up the second slide. We're going to take a step back to the first thing on the Sermon on the Mount that Jesus says. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I've always struggled with this, but if you don't understand this first beatitude of the Sermon on the Mount, you lose everything, in my opinion. I'm not a theologian, but in my opinion, this sets the stage. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I never understood this. Growing up as a kid, going to CCD, going to church, all these things, you read the Beatitudes and you look at it and you're like, what? I have to be depressed? Poor in spirit, right? In English, this is like, in English, if I'm reading it just for English, I'm like, how can I be poor in spirit? I don't want to be sad. I don't want to be depressed, broken. Now that's what I was looking at, right? But then it's interesting because Jesus is calling us deeper. He's trying to show us the kingdom of God. So when we go through this, it's really important for us to understand this. There's different words in Greek when we look at the word blessed. It's makarios. And I'm probably, if you're Greek and I just butchered your language, forgive me. Love me as your neighbor. But it means the Greek word translated blessed is makarios. Makarios describes a complete and total fulfillment in life. It does not refer to a passing happiness. I think we've all had those passing happiness, right? Patriots win a Super Bowl or lose. But, right, we have those. We have those things, that passing happiness. This is great. A moment with your spouse, with someone you love. That's great. This is eternal happiness. It's an enduring state or condition that is unassailable. It cannot be taken away. So when this crowd on the Sermon on the Mount, these followers, when they're listening to Jesus, they would have instantly known this. This is what blessed means. It is unassailable. Christ is saying, wow, there is something that will never be taken away. It is unassailable. Poor, obviously, you know, it means to lack something. If we are poor, we have a need. So to be poor is to be blessed. But what? In spirit. So spirit in the Greek means something different, right? So the word is pneuma. Now, if you put ammonia on it, it's pneumonia, but this is actually a good one. All right? So it's not the bad pneumonia. So spirit here describes what we might call self-image. To be poor in self-image. Then I'm thinking about that. I'm starting to read this. I'm studying this. I'm abiding on this. And I'm like, poor in self-image, I need to have no confidence. I need to have, what does this mean, right? To be poor in spirit is to realize that you are spiritually poor, spiritual poverty. Now, I want one of the things that we're going to hit on today is going to be the world and its ways. We are all influenced by the world. We physically live in the world. We see the world, our senses touch the world. We are assailed by the world nonstop, right? So we have the world, and then we have the kingdom of God, right? The spirit. So we're talking about these two things. So to be poor in spirit is to realize spiritual poverty and therefore have a sense that we have a spiritual need. To be poor in spirit means to reject having a false opinion of self sufficiency. To realize spiritual need is the opposite. It leads to spiritual dependence. To be filled with God's Spirit, we must first empty ourselves of self. When we live in spiritual dependence, we serve one another, which results in the principles of heaven reigning on earth. Now, I want you to think about that. Our whole world teaches self esteem, right? Oh, you've got to believe in yourself. You've got to self advocate. You have to have self esteem. God's kingdom teaches Christ esteem, Christ dependence, Christ sufficiency. So in that way, right, we walk, and if you're sitting right, if you're sitting here and saying, like, how the heck do I do that? Well, I've been walking as a Christian for close to 30 years, and I don't have that figured out yet. Because I want you to realize, please understand when I ask you the question, what is your soul condition? The answer is, and I have arrived. I know that I have total sufficiency on Christ. That is not a reality until you die, probably. There's human nature, and it's a process, and it's going to take time. And wherever you are on that, we've got to walk together, and we've got to walk with others. So Jesus is saying this to them. Realize that you've got to strip yourself of self, and you're going to be blessed in spirit, and it's going to be you're going to be blessed. It's going to be unassailable because you're going to rely on me. You're going to rely on God. You're going to rely on the Spirit and not on the world. That's really important. So that's where we're going today. So when I ask you, what is your soul condition? I want you to look at it through that lens. That's the question you're asking. Where am I in that? And there is no disappointment wherever you are. Right? There is no disappointment wherever you are. It's a step. It's working through things. So that's where we are. Okay? I want you guys to keep that. That's the foundation of what we're talking about today, and that we go back to that. Now, last week, Hannah got up here, and it was interesting because she was like, Sean, you gave me a novel to read. And, you know, it's so interesting. Like Sean and I go back and forth. He's my brother. He's like, if I ever mess up on something and I call him up, he'll say, Chuck, that was stupid. Why would you say that? It's usually about something I said to Misty, and then he said, "Why would you ever say that? Could you please call me first?" And so that's the kind of relationship we have. That's the DNA of this church, you know. So I I noticed that Sean gave her a novel, so I had to one up him, and there's two sentences more than last week. So Hannah, if you could come up and you could put up slide number 3.
You know, I've done this a lot when I could say, please stand as you are able for the reading of God's word. Luke chapter 6, 27 through 36. But to you who are listening, say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. If someone slaps you on one cheek, turn to them the other also. If someone takes your coat, do not withhold your shirt from them. Give to everyone who asks you, and if anyone takes what belongs to you, do not demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinner, love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. And if you lend to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full. But love your enemies, do good to them, and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, because he is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. May God add his blessing to the reading, hearing, and doing of his word. Amen.
Thank you, Hannah. So now, remember, Jesus is saying, and I'm saying, we look at this, what is your soul condition? So when you're going over this, and Jesus is speaking to the followers then, and he's speaking to us now, and he's calling them out, and he's saying, look, those who hurt you, those who mistreat you, and when you look at the worldview back then, right? You've got a Roman world. So you're in the Middle East, you're in Judea, you're in a place where you are controlled by the Romans. They have taken over your place, right? Your homeland. So, and then there's all different groups everywhere. So people, if they are with you, yeah, they're your neighbors, they're your friends. You're going to treat them a certain way. But if they're not with you, right, they are against you. So Jesus is being radical with them. He's calling them out. He's saying, look, if you're going to be my follower, you got to live a different way. There's people out there. There's Gentiles. There's pagans. There's people who don't believe like you. And they're apart from you. They are not with you. But I'm calling you to go with them. Now, Jesus wasn't calling them to be a doormat, right? So this is one of the things I always go through, and I'm like, God, are you calling me to be a doormat? Like someone takes my cloak, and I got to give them my shirt too? And I would always struggle with that one. But if you go back and see what that means if someone is in need and they ask for your cloak, it's not someone breaking into your house. Like God's not calling to say, hey, listen, if someone breaks into your house, like, and they beat you down and you're like, hey, listen, just take my coat. And, wait, well, hold on. I got to take my shirt off. There's a couple bruises. But, he's not saying to do that. He's saying if someone is in need, give your cloak, whether it's someone who's with you or against you. And then he starts talking about, like, even sinners, even people who don't love God, they lend to each other, right? Even they take care of each other. So, and you do the same. So what's the difference between you and them? There is none. I'm calling you to something different. Those who are different than you, those who oppose you, those who curse you, you are called to be different. You are called to pray for them, to love them, to go to them, to go the extra mile. So what is it in our society, right? There's so many political views nowadays. I turned off the news for the last 4 weeks. I'm like, I feel free, right? Because if you're politically different, that's the biggest thing in our nation right now, or in the world. If you have a different religion, if you're different politically, you this, you that. Well, they're not coming to Thanksgiving. I'm not talking to them. Well, they don't go to my church. Oh, they got some things in their lives that, just don't line up with biblical theology or doctrine. I'm not going to be with them. I'm not talking to them. Love your neighbor as yourself. Think about yourself. Those who aren't with you or your group or your people, love them as if they are. So, it's so interesting. Like, you go through this. What does the world say? I just gave you what God's kingdom should be like, right? Should be love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, right? How many, this is kind of funny, but how many of you are driving down the street and then someone cuts you off, right? Yeah. So, and then all of a sudden, like you beep at them and you're just beeping at them, right? And then all of a sudden a finger comes up from them and you're like, what? I'm like, you are cursing me? Right? And it goes through your mind, I want justice. What the heck is going on? Right? I had that happen. Like, I'm not the best driver. My wife will tell me all the time, right? Because I'm kind of like, I'm hyperactive. So I'm kind of like going off. Like, we go to Maine. Sean doesn't let me drive my own truck. I'm like he wants to stay alive. So I'm like, whatever. Like, I'm good, right? So I'm like driving down in Pawtucket. I'm on Newport Ave, and I did obviously something wrong. I can admit that. And this lady, like, they're giving me the double salute. They're F-bombing me, they're everything. And I'm like, oh, this is where my wife was not with me, but this is where my wife gets so embarrassed because then I'm like, and I feel like I'm doing it for the wrong reasons, but I'm still bringing joy. Like, I'll start giving the wave, like, oh, they must know me. Like, and I'm literally, I'm joking around. Like, I'm like, you know me, hi. And then I'm like, I'll call you. Like, what's up? And then, so this lady is so mad. It was so awesome. And then I'm making her, like, some of you may give a salute yourself, but like my way of doing it is like all of a sudden I'm being a little, okay, it's not coming from the best place in my heart, like when I do that, okay? So I need to stop doing that. I probably should pray for them. But, all of a sudden, she was smiling at me. They started laughing, which meant that I lost the argument. So, like, the intention, too, right? We talk about intention. What is our intention? Like, what is your intention with people? And that's where we're going to start talking about. So, if I give myself, like, what is your soul condition? I want you to ask yourself, I want you to think about a really tough situation in life. It might be road rage. It might be someone who has extremely hurt you and harmed you, right? So, obviously, you guys know that my wife and I have gone through some struggles with our daughter. And there's this one incident where she's probably about 17 years old, and like 1 o'clock in the morning, and for whatever reason, I woke up, and I go upstairs, and whether to get a drink of water or something, and there she is sneaking out. But she's not just sneaking out; she's leaving for good. She's running away, and she's got her backpack on, and she's really struggled with addiction. It's been really rough in the house, and I stop her right there, and I call my wife, Misty, come up here. and I said, where are you going? And she said, I'm leaving. For whatever reason, my head snapped, and I knew someone was outside, right? And there was a car waiting, a guy who was in his 20s. Now, I'm not thinking about love your neighbor as yourself. I'm thinking I'm going to beat the living crap out of this guy. I'm not kidding you, 100%. And got the keys, jumped in the car. I 1 in the morning, I chased that car down, pulled up in front of him, pinned the car along the curb, made him back out into a parking lot, got out of the car. I'm not kidding. I told him I was going to kill him. Like, absolutely. Like, you don't know who you just messed with. You're an adult. I don't care if she's 17 and you're 22. Like, yeah, I got you. And I'm like, something came over me. I'm like, I better call 911 on myself. I kid you not. I called 911 on myself because I was I would have been arrested. The cops came and they're like, Chuck, what are you doing? They knew me. And so right. So obviously Diane's brother had told him, hey, can you go help this guy out? Right. But and they're like, listen, you need to leave because you just kidnapped the guy against his will and you threatened to kill him. But I would guarantee you, you will never hear from him again. Uh, we'll 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 scare him. I said, okay. And I left. My gosh, that could have just ended my career. My could have lost custody of my kids. I would have been in jail. I got like this was a mess. Right. I don't know if you've ever had that situation. That's self-sufficiency on me. That's not blessed are the poor in spirit, right? That's my soul condition. The world and what is natural to us is self-protection, resentment. We ask, that's unreasonable, God, to pray for my enemy. The world calls us to one thing. Well, I could talk to any father, and any father would say, I would have done the same thing. I would have gone further. That's what the world says. That's not what Christ says. That's not what God's kingdom says. That's not what it calls us to. But everyone in the world would say that is reasonable. That is expected. All of us are going to draw boundaries. We're going to keep ourselves safe. I'm not going with that person. I'm not going to be with that person. That person makes me uncomfortable because they believe different than me. I'm not going with that person. Every single one of us have done that, and I still do it today. So don't think this isn't a process that isn't gonna, I'm not working out, right? And blessed are you who have already worked it out, right? But I haven't. And there's still those moments that I can't live that out yet. And I suspect that that'll be on my deathbed because there won't be any other argument and there'll be nothing but Christ, right? And that's grace. There is grace for you. We were never called to judgment, we were called to grace. So when we look at that, what is your soul condition? Ask yourself that this week. As you go through this. Wow, I didn't realize I spoke that much. 3 pages. I didn't even look at it. But Jesus flips the script. This is where soul transformation. Do you want it? Do you want that soul transformation? It means complete reliance on God or working towards that. So when we talk about love, right? Love your enemies. And this is something that I have always struggled with, right? There's another one. I look at that. How am I supposed to love? I mean, I love my wife. I love my children. I love my mom, my family, my friends. You want me to love my enemy. So this is where if any of you really have the time, like, Dom has talked about abiding over and over again. Sean has talked about abiding over and over again. I use the Blue Letter Bible, the app, and it really goes through so many text commentaries, different things like that. But what I really like doing is looking at what did the word mean? What does this mean in Greek? What do these words mean? Right? So a lot of us in our society, love is connected to an emotion, right? We're very, whether it's physical love or emotional love, it's like love is a feeling. So it's very one dimensional for us what love is. But it would not have been for the people of the Sermon on the Mount. They would have understood exactly what Jesus meant when he said this, love your enemies, right? So this is where you look at your soul condition. Now let's look at your soul transformation and what we need to be working towards. So there's 3 kinds of love, right? Phileo, and that's brotherly love, right? That's love for a brother right? So then there's eros. That's like that erotic physical love, right? That you have for your wife or your husband. And then there's agape love. Now that is a different kind of love. It's unconditional and it's not about a feeling. It's a choice. When Jesus is saying love your enemies, he's saying agape love. Has nothing to do with feelings. Has nothing to do with feelings. It has to do with you making a choice. And that's key. In that moment, can you make a choice? Have you given away all your rights, your will, your self dependency, and given your will to God? Dom was telling me about free will, and it's the only place that God doesn't have power. Am I right with the quote? You have the power to give your will to God and to align your will with His will. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Are you ready for that soul transformation after you have analyzed or looked at the condition of your soul? Jesus flips that script, right? He says you have a choice. It is your free will to choose to align yourself with my will and turn to the cross. See, at this cross, there's nails in it, right? Staples. There's one staple, I see, but nails. Jesus got up on that cross when you were still his enemy. Love your enemies. Jesus made the choice that he's asking you to make. He got up on the cross when you were still the enemy. And remember, time, there is no time with God. A day is like 1,000 years. 1,000 years is like a day. When he's speaking on the Sermon on the Mount, when he's dying on the cross, he knows your name. And he made that choice. He's asking you, are you willing to transform your heart? Are you willing to make that choice that I made for you? Because if you're saying, like, I can't leave these walls, or I'm only going to say in my little private club, that guess what? You're missing the whole message. There's a lot of churches you're going to go out there. There's a lot of people who are going to say, well, I can't be with them. No, well, that's not what Jesus said. Jesus said, I'm going to die for you. You were still my enemy. I didn't put up a wall to you. I didn't put up a boundary to you. No, I chose to die for you. So when blessed are the poor in spirit, you are choosing to die to self and to rise in Christ in Easter, 2 weeks from now. Dom, you can come up. Dom's going to close us in song and prayer. What is your heart condition? Do you want to be transformed?